Ed Gordon, who interviewed the president this past week, now takes a closer look at Kamala Harris.
In 2003, underdog Kamala Harris won the district attorney election for the city of San Francisco.
Most important things don't come easy.
Her victory marked the start of a political career that certainly would not come easy. Kamala Devi Harris was born in 1964 in Oakland, California. Her mother, Shyamala Gopalan, was from India, and her father, Donald Harris, from Jamaica.
I was raised by a mother who said many things that were life lessons for me, including, don't you ever let anybody tell you who you are. You tell them who you are.
She grew up in Berkeley, California, where her parents were both academics and activists who participated and raised their children within the civil rights movement. Harris graduated from Howard University in 1986.
I chaired the Economic Society. I was on the Howard debate team.
She then graduated from law school from the University of California, Hastings in 1989, and public service was her calling.
If you want to pass Proposition K, you're going to have the exact opposite effect.
After serving 7 years as the district attorney of San Francisco, in 2010, she was elected Attorney General for the state of California. She broke barriers as the first Black and South Asian woman to hold the position, which she did for 6 years before she stepped into national politics.
Attorney General Kamala Harris just made it official. She is running for U.S. Senate.
We know this is the first open Senate seat we've had in almost a quarter of a century.
In 2016, she ran for Senate in California, and she won.
I intend to fight for truth and transparency and trust.
And it didn't take long for her fight to be felt in Washington, D.C.
Attorney General Barr, has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone?
I wouldn't.
Yes or no?
Could you repeat that?
With her insistent inquiries and commitment to progressive policies, presidential buzz was quickly building around her, and she made it official in 2019.
I stand before you today to announce my candidacy for President of the United States.
Her announcement rally in Oakland drew nearly 20,000 people, and her campaign quickly gained momentum.
And those folks don't want a wall, they want a paycheck. So let's be clear about what should be the priorities of this administration.
Harris's most notable moment came during a primary debate with Joe Biden over his opposition to federally mandated busing.
You also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
But her campaign soon began to stall. Her record as a prosecutor in California at times was at odds with the direction of the party. And before long, the momentum she had was gone.
It is with deep regret, but also with deep gratitude, that I am suspending our campaign today.
However, she would soon be on a new campaign.
I have no doubt that I picked the right person to join me as the next Vice President of the United States of America, and that's Senator Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris!
Just months after her own campaign fell apart, Kamala Harris was on the presidential ticket with Joe Biden.
I accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States of America.
And in November of 2020, Joe Biden was elected the 46th president.
We did it. We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
With Kamala Harris making American history as the first female Black and South Asian vice president.
I, Kamala Devi Harris, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all.
In her role as vice president, she initially seemed to struggle to find her footing.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
At first, she was assigned the immigration crisis. But she found her voice when Roe versus Wade was overturned.
Today in America, 1 in 3 women of reproductive age live in a state with an abortion ban. Since Roe was overturned, I have met women who have had miscarriages in toilets because they were refused care.
And she has taken the message of reproductive rights throughout the country.
We trust women. And when Congress passes a law that restores the reproductive freedoms of Roe, our President, Joe Biden, will sign it.
And as the 2024 presidential campaign began to heat up, Vice President Harris stayed the course.
When you look at current polling, the front runner for a Republican nomination is the former president, the 45th president.
We will win re-election.
We will win
re-election. There is too much at stake, and the American people know it.
Even after President Biden's debate performance against former President Donald Trump, she stood by him.
Look, Joe Biden is our nominee. We beat Trump once, and we're going to beat him again.
And President Biden stood by her.
Folks, I know what a black job is. It's the Vice President of the United States.
But as President Biden drops out of the race, the focus is now on Vice President Harris. Will she be able to win the nomination and make history again?
Hot rooms turn icy cold instantly without AC, while slashing electric bills just by doing this.
Shortly after announcing plans to drop out of the race, President Joe Biden immediately endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic Party's new nominee. Despite the fact that VP Harris has not formally been accepted by the party, Democratic leaders are already coming forward to endorse her. Political reporter Darielle Fair joins us with more.
Grace, since Biden's announcement earlier today, at least 27 of the 51 senators in the Democratic caucus, including 4 independents, have publicly endorsed Vice President Harris. 60 House Democrats, including Representatives Mark Pocan and Gwen Moore of Wisconsin's congressional delegation, have endorsed the vice president as well. But how will this impact the party's campaign with November nearly 100 days away?
Going to see, no matter what, an incredible ground game. It's something that Democrats have always done really well, and it's something that that the DNC has been investing millions of dollars in.
With Alex Lasry, a representative for the Democratic National Committee, who says the DNC will put together an official process to formally nominate VP Harris. Their convention kicks off in Chicago on August 19th. An unprecedented moment with Harris at the top of the Democratic ticket could mean history made as she becomes the first Black woman and first Asian American to lead a major political party. Sources have already circulated potential picks for Vice President: Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear among them. I had a chance to speak to Congressman Pocan, who talked with Harris earlier today on who he thinks should be chosen as a potential running mate if she is nominated.
States like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are must win. Make sure you have someone that can relate well to upper Midwest voters. Doesn't mean you have to necessarily be from here, but you certainly have to be able to talk about issues that affect working families like we have across our state.
Now, Vice President Harris was set to visit Milwaukee on Tuesday for a campaign visit. Lasry says the DNC has not received any correspondence that she is planning to cancel her event, and visiting the battleground state would be crucial ahead of today's announcement.
The race for the White House now drastically different than it was just this morning. With less than 4 months until Americans head to the polls, there's been a seismic shift in the Democratic Party. President Joe Biden out of the race, announcing he no longer plans to run for re-election. Many, including Biden and California Governor Gavin Newsom, now endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris.
Joining us to sift through all this major news today, Jory Rand. Jory, what a day it has been.
It has been a very unique, historic day, you two. And let's think about Joe Biden's long and storied career as a politician and statesman. Elected to the Senate in 1972, vice president for 8 years. He wanted to be president for so long. Ran 4 times in 1988, 2008, finally in 2020 breaking through to beat a sitting president and become president of the United States. He was running again in 2024. This is not how he wanted it to end, but today, the announcement that seemed both stunning and inevitable: Joe Biden will not seek re-election. In a stunning move today, the 46th president of the United States, Joe Biden, announcing he will no longer seek a second term in office. The 81-year-old facing mounting pressure from within the Democratic Party to drop out of the race. The push reached a crescendo after the president's disastrous debate performance last month against former President Donald Trump.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
The president blamed that performance on a bad cold, but no amount of subsequent rallies or interviews could quiet down the calls for him to pass the torch to a younger generation. For weeks, he remained defiant, maintaining he was the Democrats' best chance to beat Trump.
I'm the old guy. I am. I'm old. But I'm only 3 years older than Trump, number one. And number two, my mental acuity's been pretty damn good. I've gotten more done than any president has in a long, long time. But this week, the dam seemed to break, with polls showing the president losing in nearly every swing state and more elected Democrats calling on him to stand down. Today, the president succumbed to the pressure, posting to social media, "My fellow Democrats, I have decided not to accept the nomination and to focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. The very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this."
We in Delaware, we who've served with him in the Senate, we who loved and admired him for decades, admire his fight and his toughness. And he was convinced he could continue this fight and beat Donald Trump. But the last few weeks have been a difficult process.
And already endorsements for Vice President Harris are coming in. Bill and Hillary Clinton jointly offering their endorsements, former nominee John Kerry as well. And Governor Gavin Newsom saying no one is better to prosecute the case against Donald Trump than Kamala Harris, calling his fellow Californian tough, fearless, and tenacious. So some big names endorsing the vice president, but not everyone is on board. John Morgan, a high-profile Florida lawyer and a major Biden donor, says he is now pulling his financial support, saying he thinks Kamala Harris is too far left to beat Donald Trump. That is one major donor. The smaller donors don't seem to feel that way. In the 5 hours since President Biden made his announcement and endorsement, more than $27 million in small donations came in for Kamala Harris. Democrats still have to make it official, and Senator Joe Manchin is mulling switching back to the Democratic Party to face Kamala Harris. But he seems to be the outlier here. The Democratic National Convention is less than a month away. We'll see if Democrats even wait that long before they start roll calling votes from delegates.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Get more great ABC7 content by clicking the subscribe button for our YouTube channel. And download the ABC7 Los Angeles streaming app on Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, and Roku to watch on your TV.